So we needed to have one last example over circles that we didn't quite get to in our last set of notes. And this one is graphing a circle from an equation. The only thing here is hopefully we notice that our equation is not in standard form. So we have x squared plus y squared minus 8x plus 12y minus 12 equals 0. And hopefully we remember from the first couple of examples that we did with our parabola that in order to get something in standard form, we're going to complete the square. And this is still true for our circle. The only difference now is that we're going to have to complete the square 2 times, one with our x's, one with our y's, in order to rewrite this in standard form since both of our variables are being squared this time. So my first step when looking at the equation is going to be to move over any constants to the other side. So in this case, we have a minus 12 on the left-hand side, so I'm going to add 12 to both sides. My next step is going to be to rewrite my terms with the same variables next to each other. So I move my negative 8x by my x squared and my 12y by my y squared. Then from here, like I said, we're basically completing the square twice. So I'm going to find my missing piece for my x parentheses and also then the missing piece for my y parentheses. I'm still using that same formula that we used before, which remember is our b divided by 2 quantity squared. Remember, the first thing that we need to check for is that our a value is 1, which in this case it is for both of them, so we don't have to worry about that. Then for our x's, we have negative 8 as our b value, so negative 8 divided by 2 gives us negative 4. Negative 4 squared gives us 16. Then doing the same for our y, our b value here is 12. 12 divided by 2 gives us 6. And then 6 squared gives us 36. Now remember that we need to keep our equation balanced, but this time since I only have numbers on the right-hand side, I can go ahead and just add the same thing to both sides this time. Whereas before, remember with our parabolas, we had a y or an x on the other side. We didn't want to add or subtract anything from the y or the x, so we did it outside the parentheses. This time, since it's going to end up being our r squared value on the other side, and we don't have any variables, we can go ahead and add 16 and add 36 to the right-hand side of our equation in order to keep it balanced. And then we're going to factor. So remember, our whole goal is that we're going to have perfect squares here. So I'm looking at what multiplies together to give me 16, that adds together to give me negative 8. Well, that's going to be minus 4 and minus 4. So we would have x minus 4 times x minus 4. But remember, the other way to write that is x minus 4 squared. Likewise, with our y squared, we're looking for what multiplies together to give us 36. That adds together to give us 12. Well, that's going to be y plus 6 times y plus 6. And so instead of writing it twice, I'm just going to write it as quantity squared. And then we do 12 plus 16 plus 36 gives us 64. And so now I have my equation in standard form. And so we can find any of our informations that we need. So my center, notice, is going to be at 4, negative 6. Remember that we have to take the opposite sign for both of those since they're both inside the parentheses. And notice that our r is going to be 8. So remember, on my right-hand side, it's r squared. So we have to take the square root. in order to find our radius. So let's go ahead and we're going to plot our center is going to be at 4, -6, So I'm going to go ahead and go by 2's on my units. That way I can fit all of my circle on my graph. So I'm going to go over 2, down 3, because I'm going by a unit of 2. Okay, so there's my center. Then, because this is a circle, and I know my radius is 8, I can basically go 8 units to the left, to the right, up and down, and then just kind of fill in all of the stuff in between. Again, since I'm going by units of 2, I'm only going to go 4 units in all directions. And then I'm going to draw in as best as I can our circle. And that would be our graphed circle. So the key thing to remember with our circles is that you're going to have to complete the square with both of your variables, but it doesn't really make it harder. You just kind of have to remember to do it with both of them. And then remember with graphing, once you find your center and you know your radius, it's pretty easy to graph it from there. Sometimes whenever you take the square root of the right-hand side, you might end up with a decimal. And at that point, just kind of graph it as best as you can as far as going the correct distance. Like if it's 4.1, go 4 and then just a little bit further. I'm not going to take off for accuracy or anything like that. So just make it as accurate as you